Welcome to the most important week of the year for the podcast industry. Welcome to Podcast Movement 2025.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marissa Rives. I am the Senior Director of Sports Podcasting at SiriusXM. And I'm so thrilled to be here with the lovely, amazing Katie Nolan, renowned sports and pop culture expert.
Wow.
And the host of the hit SiriusXM podcast, Casuals with Katie Nolan. Welcome.
Hold for applause, it says on the card.
Yes, applause. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
thank
just
you.
kidding. But wow, I love that.
They're engaged.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's very cool to see you.
Well, I'm lucky enough to work with you every day-ish. But why don't we kick off by telling everyone a little bit more about yourself, the origin story of Casuals, and what first sparked that idea.
Sure. So, like you said, my name's Katie Nolan. I have been working in sports now for, I can't believe this, over 10 years. I started out on YouTube making stuff in my apartment. Ended up getting a job at Fox Sports 1 when they first launched. I was part of a show called Crowd Goes Wild, hosted by Regis Philbin, rest in peace. Went on to have my own show called Garbage Time. We won an Emmy, as well as a podcast called The Garbage Time Podcast. Then I moved over to ESPN, had a podcast called Sports with a question mark with my friend Ashley, as well as a TV show called Always Late. I've been around working in sports for a while. I worked in baseball for a season. I did Friday Night Baseball on Apple TV+. That sure was an experience. And now I'm at Sirius. The idea for Casuals, which is what you asked, which is our current show, our podcast, was that, you know, in my time in sports, there are a lot of people who speak to dedicated, diehard sports fans. There's a lot of people who will dive in on analyzing a defense or breaking down, trades or talking about who you should draft, and a lot of in-depth sports fan content. But when I think about a sports fan, when I think about a baseball game in the middle of the summer, a full stadium, I picture, like, are all of these people listening to a sports podcast? Probably not. A lot of them are there because they like the social experience of sports. And is there anything in sports media that speaks to people who are there for the social experience, for the emotional experience, for, like, connecting to people that you know through this live event that's happening? And I felt like there really wasn't that anything that was serving that audience. And so what we came up with Sirius and I was sort of this idea of, like, look, you can be a fan of sports and not know everything. I know female sports fans are pretty familiar with this experience. You tell somebody you love a sport and they say, oh, when was the last time they won a championship? Name everybody on the roster. And if you don't perform your knowledge, then you don't qualify as a fan. I wanted to make a space where that's not the case. You can come in here and tell me you don't even know what a baseball looks like, and I want to talk about the sport in a way that gets you excited about it, makes you want to watch it, makes you interested and able to follow along with it for the highs and the lows, basically experience the joy and the misery of being a sports fan without any of the prerequisite. I wanted there to be an entry point for people who want to get into sports, but when they listen to a sports podcast, sometimes it talks over their head. And I didn't want to explain sports to people. I just wanted to say, like, hey, come over and hang out here, and we'll talk about hockey, and you can see if you like hockey. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you're more of a volleyball person. We're going to talk about all of it, and the key driver of the podcast is, like, entertainment, fun, emotional investment in sports. So long-winded answer to what was a long-winded question, so I do think it's fair.
It's fair. I'll allow it.
We wanted to make a space for people that were trying to get into sports but just couldn't find a door that made them feel welcome. And so that's sort of what we're doing, and I think we've been doing it for
8 months
8 months now, and it's going pretty well. I'm having fun.
I'm having fun.
So it's going well.
I think that's a good barometer, right? It's like,
Yeah.
Are you having fun? That's like
blast.
step one, and
Yeah.
then the content will follow.
Yeah.
As you've mentioned, you've been involved with some amazing projects over your career, including ESPN's Always Late with Katie Nolan and your Emmy-award-winning show, Garbage Time, which is where I fell in love with you. What drew you to SiriusXM and the power of podcasting and audio? What makes it the right medium for the kind of stories that you're looking to tell to that casual sports audience?
Yeah, what I've always loved about podcasting, because I've been doing podcasts since 2015, I think, was when we launched the Garbage Time podcast. And it's a medium that's obviously been around for a while. My favorite thing about it throughout my career has been so much has been devoted to the TV because you've got to get the graphics have to be right. So you have to have your takes before you say your takes so that the graphics can match your takes. And they've got to get they're worried about everything except what you say, mostly, on TV. Podcasts were like, we would finish recording the TV show, and I would go and get to do the podcast where I could just like relax. I could be in my sweatpants, and it was just about the talking. It wasn't about any of the other stuff. I don't know if that's unique to me as a woman, because I feel like so much of being a woman is about how you present, and it was really nice to me to go like, it doesn't matter how I present when it's audio. And so given what Casuals is trying to do, I want it to feel like a bathrobe and slippers. I want it to feel like you're relaxing. There's no pressure. There's exciting moments. There's fun things, but it's not about like being buttoned up and wearing a suit and whatever. What I love about Sirius, who's like in my mind, the leader in the audio space, when I think about audio and like radio, it's like Sirius. I think that the reason for Casuals being an audio medium is because I wanted to focus mostly on having a conversation that people feel invited into. I think when I listen to podcasts, it's because I want a conversation I don't have to participate in. I want to like listen to a conversation and feel a part of it, and no one's turning to me and going, and now you talk, because I'm listening. So it's like I wanted this to be an experience for when you're walking your dog or you're, on a long road trip and you just want to know and be caught up on everything in sports. And so for me, the audio is the most. Now we're learning that audio and video and podcasting is becoming a big thing, which we will get to eventually. But the reason that I love Sirius and that I wanted to work with Sirius on something like this is because I wanted it to be audio first. I wanted it to be about the conversation and the hang first, and then worry about like, what does the set look like? All of that was sort of would take away from what mattered the most to me, which was the core of who we are and who we were trying to speak to.
Speaking of being a woman, because you did allude to that, and I would be if there's two women on a stage, I have to ask a question about being a woman, else I'll get kicked off the stage.
Yes.
For many women in sports media like me, your brand of sports talk content was sort of an anomaly at the time when you got started. Oftentimes, women weren't given the chance to give their opinions, to be funny, to be anything really more than the host, kind of pushing the conversation around. As a trailblazer in the space, how have you seen the sports media landscape shift in terms of opportunities for women on and off the mic?
A good question.
Thanks.
And it certainly has shifted, and it will continue to shift in good ways and in bad ways. Like you said, when I started, there were it felt like maybe 3 or 4 boxes that women in sports could be put into. One of them was sideline reporter. One was host, where you would sit between 2 men who would scream at each other, and then throw to break eventually. And then there are, women in the booth. I don't want to erase that. Like, other women have also been doing this as well. I don't think I invented being a woman in sports. But for me, it was showing up authentically was the most important thing to me. And I've always grown up a sports fan. It's like my relationship to my father wouldn't exist without sports. I don't know what we would talk about, because you don't talk to your dad and start with emotion. You have to slow play that in order to get him to open up about it. And sports is fantastic for that. So showing up authentically was always my number one objective. I didn't want to show up in sports and pretend to be something other than what I was. And what I was just a person who loved sports and was interested in everything happening in them. And also what I was is an opinionated pain in the ass. So I kind of showed up that way. And I think a lot of my career, I wasn't aware as much, because when you're new to something, you're like, this is just how I do it. And then I look back on it now and I'm like, I probably made so many people upset with that. But what was important to me was that I know that if I exist, I'm not an anomaly. I know there's a lot of women out there like me who don't have the opportunity to be working at Fox or at ESPN that show up to sports the way I do, and visibility is important. And so I wanted to be that in that space. And I think in the time since I've started in sports, I've noticed that door which was cracked open by the Michelle Beadles of the world, shout out, has been sort of all the way opened now. And there is, while those other boxes still exist for women to go into in sports, there's now no expectation that women will show up as anything other than themselves. I don't think that had a lot to do with me. You said that it did on your card, so I'm just answering your question. But I think that like we are getting to a point, especially with the growth of women's sports, the boom of women's sports, of people finally investing in and caring about and seeing the value of women's sports, but also women in male sports. I just think that it has the roles for women have evolved, thank goodness. And I do still think, I must say, there's a lot of evolution left to be done, and get on it. I'm looking down barrel at whoever's in charge of that kind of stuff.
It's not these fine people.
No,
They're
not
here.
you. No.
They're here.
No.
These are
You.
these are the
You,
good
I don't know.
ones.
Who do you work for? I'll point at your camera. You.
So you launched your show in January, so still early days, really. It feels like we've been doing it a long time, but 8 months is not a long time. So building an audience can be challenging early on. How do you think about growing your community of listeners who typically stands apart from the average sports fan?
I think for me, so we are predominantly an audio podcast, but we do clips for discoverability. So we have video, as you know. I don't have to explain this to you because you work with me, but we clip it up for socials because that's where people discover their podcasts. And so when we are in the planning process of an episode, and we do 2 a week, I try to think about that casual fan. I try to think about a person who's like, I don't know, I guess I like sports, but I wouldn't call myself a sports fan. I think about hitting their algorithm. What would make them stop? What would make them listen? And then what would make them go, is that a sports podcast for me? And we try to clip things like that to grab the audience that we're looking for, which is people who have been curious. We call it sports curious. Or even people that are like, oh, I know everything about baseball, but don't tell me about hockey. I don't know anything about it. We're trying to grab those people and go like, have you ever kind of wanted to know? Have you ever wanted like a base operational knowledge of this sport? Because now with the way media is, you could scroll your timelines all day and feel like you're getting news, and none of it, you're like, it's not sticking. And I feel like our show, I wanted a one-stop place where if you're like, what's going on in sports today, you could come here, listen to this, and know everything so that if water coolers were still a thing, if we were all still going to work and gathering by them and having conversations, whatever that is in your life now, you could show up and go, yeah, did you hear about, the Twins and what they're doing? Like, just to give people that conversational Spanish, basically. It's like the conversational sports of, like, how to participate in the conversation and invite people in.
Was that your flip? Or on the flip side, like, is pillow fighting a sport?
Is pillow fighting a sport?
I mean, that is a conversation.
Games. We did a lot of stuff about the World Games, which I didn't know this as a sports fan who's been in sports for this long. They're like the Olympics that aren't Olympic sports yet. So it's like they have an Olympics of these sports that one day might be Olympic sports, but they aren't yet. And one of them is called orienteering. And they put you in the middle of the woods, and without a map, you've got to like find your way. Fascinating.
Well, to discover something with the audience, right?
Yes.
So sometimes it's not like, I think a lot of sports shows are about being like the smartest person in the room all the time. And sometimes it's like, I don't have to be the smartest person in the room.
Exactly.
Maybe I can just be a person in the room who's interested and engaged and
asking the right questions,
right.
Seeking the information, and then we learn about it together. Like, that is a very important point. I don't like showing up and going, this is how this works. I don't know. And there's also even a chance, I'm embarrassed, so I'll hide as I say it, that I knew once and have forgotten. There's a lot to do. So, I wanted to make sure we have a non-judgmental space where we can learn about stuff together that's exciting. Because sports are exciting. There's no way to not be excited by sports. It's like in a world where nothing's happening live anymore. Theoretically, these are not fixed. We are learning what's going to happen. No one can predict it. You can try, but we won't be able to until it happens. And that is, to me, so valuable in a world where we're all getting more disconnected.
So true. Sports, as you're saying, is becoming a much bigger part of the podcasting landscape, too, and brands are taking note. Our research with Edison shows that over 90% of sports podcast listeners take action after hearing a podcast ad. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Isn't that amazing? Your words carry a lot of weight, Katie. Why do you think that is, and what makes a host read stand out to you?
Wow. I think that, at least in my experience with sports fans, we are passionate and we mobilize. I think, we understand the community of sports. We are also fans of any media property. Sports fans are like the gold standard of fan. They show up, they pay for tickets even when their team is pissing them off. We just move for those things. So I imagine that the reason sports fans act on ads is probably because they what I've noticed from my podcast listeners that I really love is if a brand is invested in us as a show, our fans respect and appreciate that brand for showing up and helping fund the thing that they get to listen to for free. There's like an appreciation that translates over to that brand. What was the second part of the question you asked? Why do I think that is? And
What makes a host read stand out to you?
when I'm listening or when I'm giving it?
When you get that copy and you're like, okay, I'm working with this brand. What about it speaks to you, and when you're approaching it to kind of present to your audience?
For me, it is if the product can serve our audience listener base. From what I know of my listeners and the way that I picture them in my mind, if a read coming from me, it needs to be authentic to me. There needs to be room for me to be myself, which obviously takes a lot of trust that I try to build with our advertising partners of like, look, I might not go exactly on the script you've given me, but I like your product. My audience needs your product. There's value in your product for my audience, and let me tell them about that in a way that like, just trust me. So for me, I guess in a read, what stands out for me is does it authentically connect to me and therefore to our larger audience? And is there not a long list of things I can't say? That's a big one. Just don't give me a big long list of but don't say these 18 words, because then I'm trying to go and talk about your brand authentically, but I keep checking a list and being like, I said that word. I have to go back and do it again. I think authenticity in the space, and I hate saying that word because of how often everybody's saying that word, but when I say it, I mean it. Everybody's like, authenticity is so important. I agree, but I don't think everybody that's saying it is necessarily being authentic. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, because I think at the end of the day, sometimes people do things that they might not fully believe in because it makes sense in that moment. And I think for you, it's really important that
it's all I have.
Your audience trusts what you're saying to them, right?
Right.
You kind of just answered this question, so I'm going to skip it.
Great.
Can you walk us through an example of a brand you've loved partnering with and why?
So I can't do one for Sirius because we've just basically started. Like you said, we are in our infancy, so we have just started kind of selling ads. And I bet if any of those brands are here, I bet I'm going to love working with them long term.
Yes.
But to go back to like an older podcast, so from ESPN when we did sports, one brand that stands out to me is MeUndies. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of MeUndies. They're a big. If you listen to podcasts, you've probably got a pair or two of MeUndies. Which, if you told me originally the concept of a company being like, "We'll ship you underpants every couple months," I'd be like, "What? Who needs this? What do you mean?" Turns out, me. I love MeUndies. I still use them, and the reason is the brand was so game for whatever we wanted to do, and what we used to do for our ads, and I don't know how we got away with this, and it probably won't ever happen again, but my producer, we would get the ad read from the company, and then my producer would surprise me with a song that we would then play the karaoke version of, and I would live sing the ad copy to the tune of the song, which, as you can imagine, led to some insane moments in our podcast, but no one ever skipped our ads, because it was like, where is this going to go? What song is it going to be? Is she going to remember how it goes? Because surprisingly, a lot of the times when you're trying to read ad copy and hit the rhythm of words from a song, it's harder than you'd think. But I think MeUndies, we did a Titanic, the Celine Dion song from Titanic with MeUndies, and there's always that moment where you hit publish and you're like, are they going to be mad that we were screaming the promo code? And they got back to us and they were like, more of this. And that was when I was like, okay, I love a company that goes, I don't get it and I wouldn't have thought of it myself, but I love it and keep doing that. And so they sponsored us for our whole run.
Well, it's like brands that understand that as long as people are talking about them and are interested and engaged in what you're saying about them, that it's going to work.
Yes. Yeah, I want our audience to buy your product as much as you want our audience to buy our product. I just am not as scared of accidentally doing it wrong as the brand is going to be, because they're closer to it. You know what I mean? So a brand that's willing to go, yeah, try it, see if it works. And if it's not working for them, to communicate that clearly. But yeah, MeUndies was very fun. Coors Light as well was also really fun with us on sports. They became a recurring character in our podcast where we talked about those Tap the Rockies. That's their thing, right?
Yeah.
This was years ago.
But I mean, it could have changed by now, but I mean, when it's a good tagline, it just sticks. Okay, so we're talking about brands. Now we're going to try to manifest the future of this podcast. Are there any dream brands you'd want to work with? what types of brands you'd want to work with?
Oh boy. I mean, my brain immediately goes to like a something that would serve our audience, obviously. So sports, women, and men as well. But like, so any like fashion, athletic, athleisure wear, that sort of thing speaks to me. We have a prop on our set because a couple years ago they started making you bring clear purses to sporting events. You can't like bring a bag that people can't see into. And every female sports fan was like, okay, so everyone's just gonna see my tampons. So on set of our podcast, we have a clear bag stuffed full of tampons. Just sort of
Naturally.
normalize the visual, like this is okay, don't, and so yeah, maybe a tampon brand. Any company that like I think can serve our audience that is willing to not take itself too seriously and sort of provide value, whether it be like a unique promo code or like some sort of a special something for our audience. I will work with any brand if it serves the people that we're trying to reach. Should I have said a brand? Nike. I don't know. Do you want me to say?
No,
a brand?
I think I think it was a wonderful answer.
Okay.
Actually,
Great.
if I'm grading this, I think it was wonderful.
Great. Thank you.
As we discussed, audio is an incredibly powerful medium. You also post clips of the show on YouTube, as you mentioned, for discoverability. You have a great social media presence. As all of us here know, the future of podcasting and growth is across multiple platforms. How do you think about posting that sort of content for the different types of channels? So if you're posting something to YouTube versus TikTok versus an audio feed, do you kind of approach things a little differently?
Yeah, I've always been really hands-on when it comes to my social presence because I don't know if it's because I'm a woman in sports and there's like a higher standard that I've always felt like I have to, I don't know what it is, but I don't like turning over my social to people that aren't me. It is, to me, the point of social media is to show up as a person and use the platform that way. So we have branded like our actual show accounts across, we have them on TikTok and Instagram. The change of Twitter really threw everything for a loop, as that was my favorite space that now I don't find myself using as much.
I never thought there'd be a time we'd launch a show and not launch a show.
It's pretty
Twitter
wild.
account.
But as far as that, like my own social media, I like to, just imagine, look, we're all people that use social media. It's part of our world, a bigger part of our world than it's ever been, and every year it grows. You know when you have an idea that's a tweet. You know when you have an idea that's an Instagram picture. You know when you have an idea that's more TikTok. And I feel like we, the way we clip things are to try to reach the audience that we want while also serving the audience that we have on those channels. So we've got a set of guidelines that we use of like what we're looking for in a clip, especially while we're in this early stage of the podcast, where the sorts of clips I was bumping into on TikTok that would make me go, what is this podcast? Like the first one I think of is Basement Yard. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that podcast, but I didn't know about them in any way. And the only time I found them was by flipping through TikTok and just going, these two guys are wearing headsets and talking into mics. I don't know what they are. I don't know where they came from. I'm going to look them up because they seem like they're having such a fun time. So for us, it's like TikTok clips are like the big laugh of our episodes, or it's a moment where like a connection is made. Someone makes a connection to sports that like is important to them. We have Isabella, our producer, who we're sort of introducing into the world of sports. She's been the pure joy of our podcast because watching sports happen to someone, especially somebody so sweet, is really amazing, and it's like the heart of the podcast. So like those moments that somebody who isn't already a fan would go like, what is this? I want to be a part of this. While also people who are our fans, the stuff we're posting on our show accounts is like, you know what we are, you know what we do. Isn't this funny that this happened to us? So yeah, I think having an important strategy across each of the different socials is important to me for that reason. I want to make sure that who we reach, it's like actually, and you never know who's going to just scroll past it. There's so much content to watch at all times.
And I was going to say that, like, sometimes the experience for the audience, it's the only experience they're going to have. They might never come to the RSS feed. They might only know casuals through the Instagram page, right? And so that might be their experience for 3 months before they decide, oh, let me actually look this show up. So I think it's important to like represent your brand well across those platforms so that if that's all they're going to get, they're at least going to get something good.
100%. I think eventually we will switch to, once we have the audience that we've been, then we'll switch to like maybe you post something more controversial so it gets out to people that might not like you. Right now, I'm like, let's keep it inside. We don't have to make, like, I'll post what I believe. I'm not like trying to poke anybody. I feel like a lot of social media has become very polarized, where it's like you're either on this side or you're on this side, but either way you feel extreme. And I'm like, I don't know, there are people who just live right here and have extreme opinions on whatever but it's like it doesn't have to be shock and controversy to get everybody. I just wanted to be like, do you like sports? Do you want to come hang out? Do you want to take a breath?
Yeah, start with
do
the
you want
funny.
to just chill out for a second?
Right.
That's us. That's what we're here for.
Let's quickly dive into the creative process and how you blend sports and culture. How do you make sports stories appealing to an audience that might not actually follow sports closely, like the type of fans that don't really care about X's and O's and analytics? I mean, we've talked a lot about that sort of content, but like how do you take a story that someone probably didn't hear and make them care?
To me, it's the easiest part because it is what I love about sports already. It's obviously I love a big hit. I love a big game, but the human element of sports and the athletes and their stories or their families or their the way that the ripple effects of things that happen in sports, the things that happen around it. I feel like a lot of people are focused on like a drop in the water. They talk about the drop. I want to talk about the ripples. I want to talk about the things that come from that or what it says about them or what it says about their sport or what it says about their team and just discuss the surrounding things to it. Because I think like building that out for the listener makes them go like, oh, I didn't even think of it that way. I didn't even think of the fact that this is so important to the city of Buffalo because of the history of Buffalo and the Bills and what's happened and so it's like providing that sort of context that like colors in the image. Whereas I think a lot of other sports coverage, at least from my experience and in my life, has been like, they tell you what happened. I would like to talk about the stuff that means, like what that causes and why this is funny and why this is scary or why this is, whatever it is, the bigger story and the human element around all of it. And also just like laughing. What's the funny thing? You don't have to know somebody's batting average to be able to laugh at the fact that, they tried to catch the ball and their pants fell down. Like there's moments to zoom in on. I don't think that's happened, but sure would be pretty funny.
That would be fun. We would talk about that on Casuals
absolutely
for sure.
Would.
Okay, and to close this out, let's have a little fun.
I hate fun.
No, that goes against everything we just talked about. The kickoff of the NFL and college football seasons. Playoff baseball is a very special time to you.
Uh-huh.
It's just a super fun time of sports coming up here. What do you have your eye on that has the potential to be particularly entertaining this fall? It can be on the field, it can be a storyline, a team, a person, a particular athlete. Tell us, Katie, so we can follow along this fall.
I hate to do this to you. Because I hate to be wrong.
Oh, gosh.
But it's the Seattle Mariners, okay? The Seattle Mariners have been, like, almost about to do it for so long. They have all of the pieces. You may have heard of Big Dumper, who is their home run hitting catcher who has a big dumper. He's got a big...
Derriere.
But it's his nickname. I didn't give it to him. I'm not sexualizing him. This is just the way that it is. They've got, like, young, exciting people. They have all the pieces. They have Eugenio Suarez, who I'm obsessed with. He hit it was either 3 or 4, I think a 4 home run game this year. Unheard of.
Unreal.
They have all the pieces. I love their fans. Seattle Mariners fans are the best. It's one of my favorite stadiums. They're just great people. And and then the sad side of it is like, they better hurry up and do it. Because if they don't do it now, I don't know when it's going to happen. And so my big story that I'm really, really pulling for right now, amidst all of the football of it all, which I'm also very excited for, as a Patriots fan, less excited than maybe in years past, but we're on the upswing.
You had your moment.
We're on the upswing. We're coming back,
You've had your time.
We can have a second time. I think we deserve more times. Bill Belichick's living like a young man.
He's having a great
He's out here
time.
having the time of his life. I'm also excited to see how UNC does. I have no idea how that's going to go and how opposing fans are going to handle his if you haven't heard, very young girlfriend. And so, yeah, the Mariners, I guess, Bill Belichick at UNC, and the Patriots being the Patriots again. Those are my big things I'm looking at. But also orienteering.
Orienteering. There's always orienteering. Katie Nolan, thank you so much. For everyone here, if you want to check out Casuals, you can listen to it. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Thursdays, wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
And this wonderful lady is the host of it. Thank you
That's
so
me.
much.
Yeah, thank you, Marissa. Thank you, everybody.